The signs were prepared and waiting by the front entrance. I'd spent the majority of the past couple of days on them because I wanted them to be flawless. Now the tough part. Up the stairs, into the master bedroom, strip off the bed linens, wrestle the mattress off the queen-size bed and half carry, half drag it down the steps, down the hallway, through the front door, and out onto the front yard next to the street. Back into the house, up the stairs. Toss the slats and bed linens down the stairs, follow them down and take them outside, piling them beside the mattress. Another trip to the bedroom, dismantle the side rails and rush them outside. Check my watch. 4:22. Have to hurry. Need to be finished by 5. The headboard and footboard followed, and by 4:35 the bed was reassembled. Next, the kitchen table. That was light enough that I was able to slide and carry it, turning it sideways and angling it through the entrance, positioning it next to the bed in the yard. The final item was the 6x8 area rug in the living room. I rolled it up and placed it by the other items in the yard, set up the signs and noted with pride that it was only 4:55, 10 minutes to go until my wife arrives home.
Nina.
I walked to the middle of the street and turned to view my handiwork. It looked so beautiful it nearly brought a tear to my eye. My wife's and my marriage bed, the kitchen table and the throw rug. The 3 places I knew for certain my wife and her lover had slept repeatedly over the past 6 months. And the signs, so perfect, placed high enough to be out of reach, and one by one I read them. The large sign in front of the furniture read, "These items are yours for the taking, free. They are no longer wanted in this house. If you can endure the stench of infidelity and broken promises, help yourself." The sign above the bed read, "On this bed my wife repeatedly broke her wedding vows and discarded our marriage by sleeping with her lover twice a week for the past 6 months. This afternoon was their most recent encounter, and the smell of their affair still lingers on the sheets." Over the kitchen table was the sign that stated, "My wife and her lover often engaged in intimacy on this table, usually just a few hours before she served me dinner." Above the throw rug was a sign that said, "My wife and her lover seem to prefer this rug for their activities, something my wife always denied me, claiming it was too unpleasant to even consider." To each sign I had stapled a 17 by 24-inch photo of the adulterous pair consummating their union on the respective piece of furniture. There was a 5th sign, positioned slightly behind the table, which read, "My wife's lover is her boss, Greg Allen of Mitchell Price and Allen Realty. He's married and has 3 children. I don't think his wife knows about any of this, but she will soon." 4:57 p.m., just in time. She would be home any moment. I turned around and saw a group of neighbors already gathering to watch what I was doing. Several cars had stopped, and more than one person was talking on a cell phone, either inviting friends to come see or calling the police to report public indecency. I casually waved to the gathering crowd and walked back into the house, closing the door behind me. At exactly 5:05 p.m., I saw my wife's car turn the corner at the end of the block and immediately slow down, noticing the crowd near our house, looking at something on our lawn and chatting and laughing among themselves. Slowly, she drove up to the house we'd shared for the past 10 years and stopped in front, staring at the sight of the furniture and signs in our front yard, paying, I'm sure, particular attention to the large photos of her and her boss, Greg Allen, in intimate moments, their faces displaying lust and pleasure. Even through her car window and the window of my house, amidst the chatter of the 40 or 50 people standing around, I still heard her scream, "No. Oh God, no, Co." Finally, her gaze shifted from the signs to the front window of the house where she saw me standing. We locked eyes. She looked devastated, her face ashen. I saw tears streaming down her cheeks, and she seemed to be asking me why. I had the same question for her. I watched her for a few seconds, then turned away, drawing the curtains behind me. Chapter 2. I suppose at this point I should explain how my wife Sherry and I reached this heartbreaking situation. My name is Jack Meyer. I met Sherry during our junior year of college. A mutual friend suggested we meet, and when we did, I was instantly smitten. Sherry wasn't beautiful in the traditional sense, but she was incredibly charming and alluring. Standing at 5'2", with striking blue eyes and dishwater blonde hair that fell to her shoulders, she had a petite yet perfectly balanced physique. Her 32B breasts and slender waist captivated me, and though she was unaware of it at the time, I was completely enchanted, with no doubt that I would win her over. Sherry and I began dating, and within a few weeks we were officially a couple. A month after we first met, we made love for the first time, and it was an experience like no other. I was infatuated with Sherry and couldn't get enough of her body. Although neither of us were virgins, we were quite inexperienced, and we luxuriated in each other's bodies. Every position we explored seemed to become our favorite. It's safe to say we were as deeply in love as it was possible for two people to be. We got married shortly after graduation and moved into our first home, a condo in Van Nuys. Sherry obtained her real estate license and began working with one of the area's more prominent agencies. I leveraged my engineering degree to secure a solid position with an electronics manufacturing company, and we settled into what I thought was an ideal life. For the next 13 years, we enjoyed a wonderful life together, first in our condo, and as our income grew, we purchased our dream home and started our family. First came Shelby, who is now 8 years old, and then 2 years later, Ryan arrived, now 6. Sherry and I adored those two children beyond measure. We lived for each other and for our family. So what went wrong? I wish I had the answers. I wish I could say I noticed the small signs that something was amiss, but I didn't. I was completely unaware, living in a world of unconditional love and trust with my wife. It took a coincidence to reveal what was happening, a coincidence triggered by our daughter Shelby falling ill at school. It was a Thursday, and just before noon I received a call from the school nurse informing me that Shelby seemed to have come down with the flu. At the time, I was in the middle of a staff meeting, so I asked the nurse to please contact my wife. She informed me that she had attempted to reach Sherry at her office, where she was told my wife would be out for most of the day. She also tried calling our home but received no answer, leaving a message before calling Sherry's cell phone, which only directed her to voicemail. Given the urgency of the situation, she called me to ensure my daughter was picked up as soon as possible. I apologized to my team and drove as quickly as I could to Shelby's school, picked her up, and headed home. When we arrived and I opened the garage door, I was startled to see an unfamiliar car parked in my designated spot next to my wife's. A lump formed in my throat and my stomach began to churn. No, it couldn't be, I told myself. My wife, the woman I loved more than anything, couldn't be having an affair. It's not possible. But still, why was there an unknown car in our garage with the door down? Something was clearly wrong, and I needed to investigate without letting my daughter find out. Stay in the car for a minute, Shelby, I instructed her. But why? I want to go to bed, she complained. I know, sweetheart, but I think the exterminator is here spraying for bugs and the chemicals might make you feel worse, I told her untruthfully. It was the first lie I had ever told my daughter. Let me check first, and then I'll come and get you. Shelby grumbled a bit more, but eventually settled back into the seat, waiting for me. I crept as quietly as possible into the garage, used my key to unlock the door to the kitchen, and hoped desperately to find my wife and one of her friends enjoying coffee and chatting at the table. But as I turned the corner, the kitchen was empty. I moved through the kitchen and into the living room, hoping to find her there, but no one was present. Then I heard her laughter, that familiar, joyful laugh I knew so well. It was coming from upstairs, and my heart sank. The only rooms upstairs were bedrooms. My knees felt weak, and I felt like I might be sick, but I forced myself to continue. As troubling as it was, I needed to find out the truth. I climbed the stairs as quietly as I could, the carpet muffling my footsteps. The first room was my daughter's. The door was ajar, and as I peeked inside, I saw it was empty, the bed still neatly made. The next door led to my son's room, and it was closed. I began to open it when I heard my wife's laughter again, coming from further down the hall, toward the master suite. With my heart pounding, I edged toward the door and listened intently. At first there was silence, then the sound of the bed creaking gently against the wall, followed by my wife's voice. "Oh God, Greg. So good," then a male voice replied. "That feels good, doesn't it, Sherry?" She responded, "Yes, Greg, you know it's amazing, the best ever. I've told you that 1,000 times. No one has ever satisfied me like you do." "Not even your wimpy husband, Jack?" he panted as he continued with my wife. "Please don't call Jack a wimp, Greg. He's not. He just can't make me feel like you do. He loves me so much and he tries so hard, but every time he makes love to me, all I can think about is you." My body turned to ice. My beloved wife couldn't stand the way I made love to her. I felt a surge of bile rise in my throat, but I fought to suppress it. I needed to see for myself, but at the same time I didn't want them to spot me. At that moment I realized my marriage was over, but I still needed visual confirmation of her infidelity. With my heart utterly shattered, I slowly turned the handle on the door and opened it just a crack. I peeked through, and what I saw extinguished every ounce of love I had for my wife. She was on her back on the bed, her legs splayed wide apart with her knees raised, and there was a man I recognized as her boss, Greg Allen. My initial impulse was to burst in and confront him, but I quickly realized that would likely land me in jail. After all, he wasn't assaulting my wife. She was willingly and eagerly submitting to him. "Get on your hands and knees," he commanded, and she promptly complied. "You know what's coming, don't you, Sherry?" he asked. "Yes, baby." "Whose butt is it, Sherry?" "Yours, Greg. Only yours." I turned away, quietly closed the door, and stumbled my way down the stairs, fighting the bile rising in my throat and determined to keep it down. Somehow I managed to get back to my car, lowered the garage door, and started the engine, reversing out of the driveway. "Daddy, where are we going? I'm sick and I want to go to bed," Shelby asked. "I know, Shelby, but the situation inside the house would make you feel even worse. I was only in there for a few minutes and it made me sick," I said. Not entirely truthful, but not a complete lie either. "I'll take you to Grandma Sharon's house for a few hours until things settle down." The drive to my mom's place took about 15 minutes, and as I drove, my mind was in turmoil. My marriage was over, irreparably damaged, and there was no chance of salvaging it. There was no way I could stay with the woman I had just seen in such a compromising situation. My bed. They were doing it in my bed. That betrayal was unbearable. I slammed my fist on the steering wheel, tears streaming down my face. "Daddy, what's wrong?" "Nothing, Shelby. I'm fine. The smell in the house just got to me. I'm okay. Don't worry. I'm fine." I left Shelby with her grandmother, telling her I'd be back to pick her up in a couple of hours. I didn't go into details with my mom about what I had seen. I simply asked her to keep an eye on Shelby until I returned from work. Though I was tempted to go back to confront the cheating duo, I realized that I needed more than just a confrontation. I needed revenge. As I drove back to my office, I began to devise plans that would ruin both my wife and her boss forever. Chapter 3. The electronics company where I worked had multiple divisions. I was a senior engineer in the medical equipment division, and we shared a large complex with another division that specialized in commercial security equipment. When I got to my office, I instructed my secretary not to disturb me for the rest of the afternoon. Then I picked up the phone and called my counterpart in the security division. Dan Taylor was an exceptional engineer and had been a close friend since college. I told him I needed to see him urgently, and he mentioned he was heading my way anyway to drop off some blueprints for copying and would be over in half an hour. I informed my secretary that Dan could enter my office as soon as he arrived, and true to his word, he knocked on my door 20 minutes after our call. "What's up, Jack?" "Come in, Dan, and close the door," I said. "Whoa, you look like you've just lost your last friend," he remarked. "I think I have, and I need your help." "Anything, Jack. What's going on?" "I just caught my wife and her boss having intimacy at my house in my bed." "Jack, you're not serious." "I wish I were, Dan. I had to pick up my daughter from school, and when I got home there was an unfamiliar car in my garage. I sneaked in and found them in our bedroom, on our bed. I couldn't believe it, but it's the truth." "Jack, no one deserves that. What happened when you confronted them?" "I didn't confront them. I wanted to, but my daughter was sick and I couldn't risk her seeing them. So I made her wait in the car while I went inside. After seeing them, I left quietly and took Shelby to my mom's house." "So what's your plan?" "I'm not entirely sure yet, but I know I need proof. I need audio and video of them the next time they're together, and that's where you come in." "You need security cameras and microphones?" "Something discreet that I can hide in various rooms to record everything that happens." "I think I can help with that, Jack, but how do you know there will be a next time? Maybe this was a one-time incident that got out of hand." "Not a chance, Dan. They mentioned that they've been doing this regularly for the past 6 months. I'm not sure if they always use my house, but I'd bet they do. Hotels leave a paper trail neither of them can afford, and since her boss's wife is at home, My place is the only option when I'm at work and the kids are at school.
No.
We spoke for a few more minutes before getting down to specifics. Dan mentioned he had access to a new beta line of wireless miniature cameras and microphones that could integrate with my laptop or home computer. He also had a small voice-activated recorder that I could place under Sherry's car seat to capture any conversations she might have while driving. It would only record her side of the conversation, but it was better than nothing. I thanked him and said I'd pick up everything from his office the following day. Returning home that night was one of the hardest things I had ever faced. I had no idea if I could confront my wife and maintain a semblance of normalcy. I decided that the best approach would be to make Sherry think I wasn't feeling well, which was actually the truth. I picked up Shelby from my mom's place, and when I got home, Sherry was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Upon seeing Shelby with me, she appeared frantic. "Where have you been? Why didn't you call and let me know Shelby was sick? I just got the school nurse's message on the answering machine." "The school tried to reach you, Sherry, but for some reason you were unavailable. They called your office and were told you weren't there. Then they tried the home phone and left a message. They even called your cell, but it went to voicemail." Oh God, I must have accidentally turned it off while showing houses. I didn't have a moment to myself all day. Yeah, I thought, too busy sleeping with your boss to worry about your daughter. Sherry hugged Shelby and apologized, then helped her get settled in bed. Despite her faults, Sherry truly cared for her children. It was clear to me now that I was the obstacle to her happiness. That was about to change, and soon. After getting our daughter to bed, Sherry returned to the kitchen to make soup for herself and finish preparing dinner for the rest of us. "I'm not feeling great either," I said. "I think I'll sleep in the guest room tonight just in case I'm contagious." Sherry felt my forehead. "You do feel a bit clammy and you look pale." Yeah, I thought, pale and clammy, that's what happens when you catch your wife with another man in your own bed. I didn't respond. I just turned and went upstairs. First, I went to the master suite. I dreaded entering the room, but I needed my shaving gear, toothbrush, and clothes for work the next day, so I forced myself inside. The window was open, the smell of lovemaking had dissipated, and the bed was made. She must have changed the sheets. It was painful to look at. All I could envision was her boss having his way with her while she declared how good it was and that her body belonged to him alone. Anger surged inside me like a tidal wave, but I managed to suppress it. I had to stay composed until I could exact my revenge. And I would, that was certain. I gathered what I needed and went to the guest bedroom, shutting the door behind me. I changed into my underwear and got into bed. My body felt stiff and unresponsive. I wanted to cry, but I fought it back. I had a mission to accomplish, and I couldn't let emotions interfere. For hours I lay there in the darkness, unable to sleep. After feeding and putting the kids to bed, my wife came into the room. I pretended to be asleep. She placed her hand on my forehead and then left, closing the door behind her. Sherry always took the kids to school, so I got up early, took a shower, and left the house before she woke up. I'm sure my early departure seemed odd to her, but I would just explain that I needed to catch up on work I missed yesterday due to feeling unwell. Honestly, I didn't care how she interpreted it at this point. I just wanted out of what I had thought, until yesterday, was a loving marriage founded on loyalty, honesty, and commitment. How tragically mistaken I was. Chapter 4. I got to work before any of the office staff arrived, made a pot of coffee, and started laying out my plans. I knew I would need to cancel our joint credit cards, transfer half our joint checking and savings accounts into another bank under my name only. I would change my will, life insurance, and 401k beneficiaries, removing Sherry and naming only Shelby and Ryan. It seemed so little to have to do to dissolve the last 13 years of my life. It should be harder, and deep inside I figured at some point it would be. I also knew I needed to find a good divorce attorney to try to keep Sherry from raking me over the coals. This was a no-fault divorce state, so adultery wouldn't play into the financial settlement. It might, however, help me get to keep my kids. Sherry had proven how unimportant I am in her life, but she was a good mom, and I didn't want to keep her away from her children. I just wanted joint custody so I would remain an important part of their lives, too. I tried with all my might to not think about our love life and how humiliating it was to hear my wife tell her lover how superior he was to me in every way. I knew if I allowed myself to dwell on that right now, I would start to doubt myself, and I couldn't do that just yet. That I knew would come later, and when it finally hit me, it would likely destroy me. With my list finished, I called Dan's office. He was there and told me he'd have everything I needed by noon. He'd even come with me to help me install everything and make sure I knew how to use it. I tried to concentrate on getting some paperwork off my desk when my cell phone rang. I could see it was Sherry, so after 3 rings, I answered it. Her voice never failed to make me feel warm, but this time the warmth was just a precursor to burning anger. "Hi, baby. How are you feeling?" she asked in her most loving voice. "Still a little sick to my stomach," I told her, if she only knew how sick. "I'm worried about you, honey. You left this morning before I could check on you." "Yeah, I have a lot of things I need to take care of and not a lot of time, so I came in early." "Please, Jack, take care of yourself. I don't know what I'd do if something happened to you. You know, you and Shelby and Ryan are my whole life." You have a very strange way of showing that, I thought to myself, but what I told her was, "Yeah, I'll be fine. Just need to get it out of my system." "Well, if you're up to it tonight, I can think of a good way to make everything better for you." The liar, I thought, and to think I've been so stupidly blind that I used to swallow her lie hook, line, and sinker, but not anymore. She was about to get everything that was coming to her. Just bide my time. Sure, we'll see how I feel. "Boy, you really must not feel well to be so disinterested in getting what you know belongs to you, baby." "Not disinterested, Sherry, just a lot on my mind right now. See you tonight." "I'll be home by 6, honey. If you need me for anything, just give me a call. I'm in the office all day today." That's what I needed to hear. I called Dan. He said he had everything ready and I should meet him at the door to the loading dock. We put everything into Dan's van, and with the 2 of us working on the install, had it all in place and tested by 3:30. Dan installed the software on my home office PC and set up a secure folder to gather and hold everything the cameras and microphones picked up. We bugged the living room, kitchen, guest bedroom, and of course the master suite, paying special attention to that room with 4 cameras that would capture virtually everything that went on there. As a final thought, we also installed a camera and mic in the master bath in case the loving couple decided to shower together after their love. Everything was automatically activated by motion with the cameras turning on the mics. I was ready. That night was the toughest one of my life. I couldn't convince myself to play the illness routine again, so after dinner when the kids were asleep, I dutifully followed my wife to our room where we had love. I almost lost it completely when in the middle of the process my wife said, "God, Jack, you make me feel so good. No one could ever love me like you do, baby. Just keep doing this to me forever." When we finished, without any cuddling, I turned on my side away from her and pretended to go to sleep. Sherry seemed perturbed since we always cuddled after we made love. She spooned up against my back, draping her arm over me, and said, "Jack, I'm sorry if I didn't satisfy you." "No, Sherry," I told her. "You have always satisfied me. I just wonder sometimes if I'm man enough for you." "Jack, why would you say such a thing? You know you have always been enough man for me. My life would end if something happened to you. I'll never need anyone else as long as I have you. You are my perfect lover, man. Always have been, always will be." "Yeah, I guess that's just hard to believe sometimes." "Jack, what is wrong with you?" "Nothing, Sherry, just tired," and closed my eyes and tried to sleep. Sometime later I heard the sound of Sherry softly crying. I felt no pity for her, but I did wonder if she cried out of shame for what she was doing or because she felt like I was being mean to her. Again, I got up before she did and took the opportunity to install the voice recorder under the seat of her car. I also checked out the video and sound from the installed equipment, and was assured that everything we'd done the night before was captured cleanly, even in the low-light nighttime conditions in our bedroom. When Sherry got up at first, she was a little snippy, telling me I'd said some things the night before that had hurt her feelings. Then she gave me a peck on the cheek and her mood changed into a cheery one. I guess that's because of her plans for that afternoon with her boss. I poured her a cup of coffee and told her I would be locked in my office all day. She told me she had to spend the entire afternoon showing several homes, and was pretty sure she was going to make a big sale, but would be able to pick up Shelby and Ryan after school. With a peck on her cheek, I made my way to the garage door only to have Sherry say, "Jack, you forgot to tell me you love me, honey. You know how important it is to me to hear you tell me that every morning before we start our days." "Sorry, Sherry. I guess by now I figured you should know how I feel about you. There's just a lot on my mind." "Okay, I forgive you this time, but a girl needs to hear her man tell her that he loves her. Don't forget that." I promise I won't, and I walked out. Yeah, I'll tell some girl how much I love her, if and when I ever find another girl I can trust enough to fall in love with. Chapter 5. The information Sherry gave me about showing homes all afternoon led me to believe that she would likely be spending some time with the true love of her life. I hoped that was the case. I was tired of playing games. I wanted this whole disaster over and done with. I spent the morning actually getting some work done in my office, though I kept glancing at my watch. Finally, at noon, I told my secretary that I would be gone for a few hours and set my plan in motion. I checked out a company van and parked across the street from my house, where I waited to see what transpired. It took till almost 1 o'clock before I saw Sherry's car pull up to the house, open the garage door, and park in her usual spot. When she got out of her car and entered the house without lowering the garage door, I figured she was either going to leave again right away, or she was expecting someone. 10 minutes later, I found she was expecting someone, as the same car I'd seen the day I caught them together drove up our driveway and into the garage, taking my place just as he had taken my place in my bed. I saw him get out of the car and the garage door closed. I had to hand it to them. They had guts to be so blatant about meeting in my house, in my bed, to carry out their affair. It just proved to me that they both believed there was no way they would ever be caught. Either that, or they had both come to the conclusion that they didn't care whether they got caught or not. Well, they would soon find out how wrong they were on both counts. They had been caught, and I would make sure that they would both care a great deal. With this final proof of my wife's infidelity, and knowing I would soon have all the visual proof I needed of their sordid affair, I finally allowed the tears to fall. For 13 years, I had been convinced that my loving wife would never cheat on me, just as I would never cheat on her. And with the tears came the first round of doubts. Was he that much better as a lover? Why would she willingly take the chance on destroying our marriage and his marriage too? Since she had to realize there was no way I would not tell his wife exactly what the two of them were doing. I so desperately wanted to walk into the house and confront them, but why? What would that accomplish? I'd catch them in the act, but I'd already done that once, though they weren't aware of it. Would I feel better about hitting her lover? Yes, but I'd likely go to jail because of it, and frankly, by this time, neither one of them were worth it. My only worry was how all of this horror would affect my kids and his kids too, since I was prepared to destroy him just like he had destroyed me. By 2:30 they must have finished, because the garage door opened and her lover backed his car out and left. 15 minutes later, my wife did the same thing, closing the garage door behind her. I knew she would return home with the kids by 3:30, so I hurriedly parked in the garage and made my way to my home office. I didn't want to take the time to review all the footage the cameras had recorded. Just wanted to make sure the evidence I needed was safely on my hard drive. After 10 minutes, I'd seen enough. It wasn't a total repeat of the last time they were together, but it was graphic as hell. They'd started on the kitchen table. Her boss pushed my fully clothed wife to lay down on the spot where I ate my meals. They laughed about how many times they'd done it, where my plate would be in a few hours, wondering if I'd ever figure out that I was eating on the same exact spot. After that, they moved to our bedroom. But not before her jerk lover suggested doing it in my daughter's room just for a change of scenery. My wife had a fit about that, telling him absolutely not. It was bad enough that she let him rub her husband's face in it, but her kids' rooms would always be out of bounds. At least she seemed to have a few principles, just not where I was concerned. In the bedroom, they shed their clothes and spent the next 40 minutes. I noticed neither of them ever said they loved each other, but my wife did continue to tell her boss he was by far the best lover she's ever had. As a final act, though I couldn't immediately understand why, they moved to the throw rug by the fireplace in the living room. After they finished, he dressed and left. She took a quick shower before leaving herself. I found it odd that she didn't take the time to change the sheets, but figured she would do that when she brought the kids home at 3:30. That left her plenty of time to air the room out and clean the evidence, since I seldom got home before 6. Knowing the evidence I needed was secure inside my hard drive, I shut the system down and left the house without even bothering to check out the mess I assumed was still present on my marriage bed. I'd seen enough, and even though my heart was hardened against my wife, I still felt sick inside. A sickness that was soon replaced by a burning anger and hatred. I think I actually smiled, knowing the hell I was about to bring down on both of their cheating heads. I returned to work and filled Dan in on everything I'd seen and heard. Like me, he still couldn't understand how a wife as supposedly loving as Sherry could do what it was now perfectly clear she was doing. Not only had she shattered our sacred vows to each other, but she'd gone out of her way to heap as much humiliation as possible on me to her lover, always letting him know he was a better lover, more of a man, the only person who could complete her and the only man who would ever do with her such things. An act so vile that every time during our 13 years of marriage I had mentioned it to her, she angrily told me no, that it was too nasty to even think about. All those thoughts sank my soul into a deep abyss of pain and despair I knew I had to climb out of so I could finish my task of destroying both of them. Chapter 6. I needed to find a good divorce lawyer, and Dan suggested I contact the law firm the company used to see if they could suggest anyone. I talked to one of the corporate lawyers I knew in the firm, and he gave me 3 names of divorce lawyers he knew had successful records in protecting husbands' rights. The first one I called was getting ready to retire and wasn't taking new clients, but the second one said he'd make time for me the next afternoon at 3. That taken care of, I resolved to take care of canceling credit cards, changing beneficiaries, and moving money around the next morning. When I got home that night, Sherry was in the kitchen fixing dinner while the kids did their homework in their rooms. She was wearing a yellow sundress and she looked beautiful, and for a minute I thought my heart would break all over again. She was smiling and seemed so happy, I figured it was her usual post-afternoon delight in a good mood. "Hey baby, how's my man? I hope you had as good a day as I did," she told me, actually causing my eyebrows to rise in surprise. My day was interesting, not that good really, but I did discover several interesting things I wasn't aware of. "Why was yours so great?" I asked, knowing full well exactly why she was in such a good mood. "I made a sale," she said. "First one this week, but I think there might be another one on Thursday when I show some more homes." "I guess this must have been your lucky day," I told her with less than great enthusiasm. "Anything else special about today? Meet any interesting or special people?" I asked. She gave me a strange look. "No, honey, just the usual. Work to get through my day so I can come home and be with my family. You know that's where my heart is." I nodded my head. "I also know where your body is. Or at least where it was," I thought, as I headed up to our bedroom to change clothes. While I changed, I noticed that the sheets had been changed and the room aired out. There was still water on the shower floor, and I mentioned that to her when I returned to the kitchen. "Did you shower sometime this afternoon?" She physically jumped at my words and turned to me, a guilty look on her face. "No, of course not, silly. Why would I do that?" "I don't know, but there's water on the shower floor and it never stays there more than a few hours." "Oh, the drain is probably clogging up again," she said. "Yeah, maybe, but I just cleaned it out a couple of weeks ago. Maybe someone is sneaking into the house to have a tryst with their lover, and they shower after they've had a really good intimacy," I said. This time she froze in place for several seconds. She didn't turn to face me, just kept facing the counter with her head down, then continued to pull lettuce apart for a salad. "My Jack, you certainly have a vivid imagination, coming up with something like that." "Yeah, that's me," I said. "Mr. Imagination, or is it ESP? Sometimes I think I can read people's minds." "Well, if you could read my mind, you'd see how much I love you." And she attempted to laugh, but it sounded strained. "I'll be in my office. Let me know when dinner is ready," I told her, and she turned slightly and looked at me. She looked worried. Dinner was quiet, not a lot of conversation. Sherry seemed surprised when I took her usual place at the table and made her sit in my normal spot where she made love with her boss a few hours before. "Jack, you always eat in that place at the table. Why change now?" "Oh, it's just kinda nice to have a change of scenery for a change." Sherry gave me an odd look, and when she sat down didn't eat much, just more or less pushed food around on her plate. During dinner, the kids talked about their day, but Sherry and I just listened for the most part, making appropriate comments from time to time. After we'd all pitched in to help clean the dishes, I returned to my office to work on my project. I ran through footage from that day and picked out suitable still screens that I could turn into photographs, and downloaded them to a photo file so that I could make large prints on my Epson T3000. Next, I carefully chose the wording for the signs I would create with the photographs. All that was left to do was see my lawyer to get the divorce started, get my finances in order, and wait till the next time my wife and her lover visited my house. When I finally went to bed that night, Sherry was already asleep, or at least pretended to be. I was pretty sure my actions that evening had given her something to think about. Not that it mattered. There was nothing she could do or say that would come close to changing my mind about divorcing her, and there was a slight bonus in the fact that I think I'd made her at least a little bit nervous. Today was Tuesday, and she'd mentioned that she thought she'd make another sale on Thursday, so I took that to be the signal that she and her lover would be getting together on that day. That would also be the day I destroyed them. The next morning, I again got up early, showered, and left before Sherry woke up. I had a lot to accomplish, and I wanted to give myself as much time as possible to get it done. My appointment with my lawyer wasn't till 3, so I had ample time to get all the financial things taken care of. My first stop was at HR, where I changed the beneficiary on my life insurance and 401k from Sherry to Shelby and Ryan. I got some strange looks from the woman who helped me, but I didn't feel like I owed her or anyone else an explanation for my actions. My next step was to cancel all our joint credit cards and get another made out in my name only. Then it was time to head to the bank, where I transferred half of the money in our joint checking and savings accounts to another bank in my name. I knew I should do something about our home, but I was pretty sure the courts would let Sherry stay there with the kids, so I postponed any action on that front till I'd had a chance to consult with my lawyer. At 3, I met with my lawyer and found him to be a likable enough guy. He warned me that since we were in a no-fault state, I could expect her to get custody of Shelby and Ryan, and I'd lose the house and half of everything else to my wife even if I had proof of her infidelity. I told him how I wanted him to write up the petition, and when he told me I'd never get away with taking almost everything from her, I told him not to worry. I was pretty sure I could convince her to go along with whatever I wanted. He wasn't happy, but he bowed to my demands, telling me he would have everything ready to have her served Friday morning. I also had him prepare papers to file against her boss and the company he was part owner in for purposely destroying my marriage. Those papers were also going to be ready by Friday morning. I was set. When I got home that night, I was cool toward Sherry. Frankly, I'd had it and just wanted the whole thing over with so I could get on with my life. I knew there was a ton of pain and sorrow still to come, but I understood there was no turning back, and anyway, I'd finally be sharing the pain and suffering with my cheating wife and her jerk lover. After a quiet dinner with little conversation, I retreated to my man cave, printed the photos of the lovers I was going to use, and created the signs, accomplishing everything without interruption. I also had time to write a letter to Greg Allen's wife, enclosing 4x5 prints of the big photos I was using on the posters and telling her I had plenty of video to supply her with in case she decided to divorce her husband like I was dumping my wife. Shortly after 11, I went to our bedroom to make sure Sherry was asleep, then made my way to her car, retrieved the voice-activated recorder from under her seat, rewound, and listened to what was on it. I was only getting one side of the conversations, and there appeared to be several actual business calls, but there was one that appeared to be to Greg. "Hi, lover, thanks again for this afternoon. Me too. I always miss you after we're together. Yes, oh my God, would a whole week together be heaven? Yes, maybe we can before long. We can make up a real estate convention that we absolutely must attend. Laughter. You'll drive me crazy. Laughter. Yes, baby. Only you. You know, if I didn't have to give Jack my body once in a while to keep him happy, it would be your exclusive property. Yes, baby, we're on for Thursday afternoon. I can't wait either. Bye, baby." I was surprised to find that what she said didn't hurt as bad as it had before. Maybe there was hope for me yet. Little did she know how soon she would be his exclusive property forever, and of course the fact that I was one day away from destroying their sweet lives gave me a warm feeling. Revenge, I was discovering, was powerful medicine. I replaced the tape with a new one and placed the recorder back under her seat, where I hoped it would record evidence of her torture the next day when her world fell apart. I barely slept at all that night, not because I was heartbroken. I'd gone beyond that. No, I had trouble sleeping, anticipating everything I hoped would happen the next day. For the final time, I got out of bed while Sherry continued to sleep. I stood looking down at the woman who had been the love of my life, the mother of my children, the woman I expected to spend the rest of my life with. I felt tears coming into my eyes as I realized I had slept with her for the final time. Never again would I make love to her. Never again would we cuddle or talk about our future. We had no future. And as I turned and walked away from her, I wondered if she had any idea the price she was about to pay for turning against me. She probably didn't, but she'd soon find out. I showered and left the house, stopped for breakfast at a diner, then made a brief stop at work to let my secretary know I'd be out for the day. I called Dan and let him know what was about to go down. He wished me luck, told me to be careful, and to let him know how everything went. I made a quick stop at my lawyer's to make sure everything was ready to have my wife and Greg Allen served the next day. After that, I called my wife to tell her I would pick up the kids from school. My mom said since they had no school on Friday, she wanted them for the long weekend, so I'd stop by the house around 3:45 to pick up some clothes and take them directly over to Mom's. She thought that was wonderful, and using her attractive voice told me it would give us time on Saturday to spend the day in bed. Sure, I told her and hung up. I had gotten to the point where I just couldn't stand to listen to her lie. I took my time getting back to my house. By 12:30, I was parked around the corner waiting for the action to begin. My car was mostly hidden from sight, but I could just see any car that pulled into my driveway. I didn't need to see the garage door go up and down. My wife and her lover were predictable if nothing else, and I was aware of their routine. At 12:50, I saw Sherry's car turn into the driveway, followed 5 minutes later by Greg Allen's. The bait was taken, and I was ready to reel them in. I should have felt pain knowing that my wife and her boss were with her boss in my marriage bed while I sat around the corner waiting for them to finish, but she'd lost her ability to hurt me. I couldn't believe how calm I was as I pictured in my mind all the things I knew they were doing together. It was almost like remembering a cheap flick, one with very little plot, but one bang-up ending. At 10 till 3, I saw Alan's car back out of the driveway and leave. 10 minutes later, Sherry followed suit. As soon as they were gone, I drove into my garage and closed the door. I had work to do and not a lot of time to get it done. I went to my office and checked the tape from that afternoon session. It was all there. There was a difference this time, though. This time I didn't care. After I made sure the footage was safely downloaded into my hard drive, I spent the next 10 minutes taking all of my handmade signs with their photographs up the stairs, placing them by the front door, where they would be handy. Next, I packed a toothbrush and some clothes for Shelby and Ryan and put them in my car. The only regret I had about what I was about to do was how much pain I was about to cause the two children I loved more than anything in the world. I took comfort in the fact that I had not caused the pain they would soon feel when they realized their mom and dad were no longer together. No, that responsibility lay firmly on their mother's head. She was the one that chose to have a lengthy affair and completely destroy her family. At 3:15, I drove to their school and was there to pick them up when the final bell rang. I told them they would be spending the weekend with Grandma, and since she always spoiled them rotten, they were thrilled. 45 minutes later, I had dropped them off and returned to the house where I put my plan into action, and that brings us back to where we started. Bed, table, and rug on the lawn with all the signs, the neighbors watching, and Sherry coming home to the horror of learning the truth that I knew everything. Chapter 6. I did not hear from Sherry that night, though I thought I would. There was a call late that evening from her cell phone, but when I answered, there was no one there. I was visited by the police an hour after Sherry left. They were sympathetic, but told me I had to remove the signs and photographs, or they would have to cite me for disturbing the peace and public indecency. I took them down. They had done what I wanted them to do. They were seen by my wife, and I knew from the look on her face before I turned away from her that her life had begun to spiral down into hell. That night I was drunk. I woke up Friday morning with a world-class hangover, but in spite of that I still felt a sense of power. Yes, I was sad and lonely, but I knew I'd had the strength to bury my anger and hatred long enough to exact my revenge against my faithless wife and her lover. Around noon, I opened the front window curtains and saw that the rug, kitchen table, and bed were gone. The only things left were the mattress and sheets. I'd haul those away or burn them later, I thought. The rest of the morning was uneventful, but by 3 in the afternoon, all hell began to break out. I was sure that Greg Adams' wife would have received the letter and photographs that morning, and my lawyer had called me to let me know both Sherry and Greg Adams and his partners had been served at work. He said he was there when they were served, and Sherry screamed and fell to the floor sobbing, while Greg Adams totally ignored her as he stomped around the office calling me a jerk, threatening to kill me. His partners, however, locked themselves behind closed doors for 15 minutes before returning to hand Sherry her final check and telling her that her services were no longer required. They also handed Greg a check for his share of the partnership. When he told them he had no intention of selling to them, they quoted to him the section of their corporate bylaws concerning morality and intimate fraternization with staff members. The section plainly gave them the mandate and right to sever all relationships with him and his mistress. At the same time, the front desk receptionist told him that his wife was on the phone demanding to speak with him. She had gotten the letter and photos I'd sent, and she wanted to tell him not to bother to come home and to let him know that she would be filing for divorce the next day. I later learned from the husband of one of the women that worked at the agency that after Adams was escorted from the building, everyone turned their backs on my soon-to-be ex-wife, and she lay on the floor for a good 30 minutes sobbing and moaning. At some point she apparently pulled herself together enough to leave the building, but no one was sure where she had gone. The next day I finally got a call from Sherry. She sounded horrible. She wanted to know where the children were and if they knew. I told her they were safe at my mother's place, that they did not know and wouldn't hear any of the sordid details from me. She thanked me for that and then asked if she could come by and pick up some of her things, and I of course told her she could. All she had to do was tell me when, and I would leave for a few hours while she got what she needed. She wanted to know if I could stay and talk to her, and I told her I really had nothing to say to her, causing her to start sobbing again. "You know I'm sorry," she said. "You have to know how sorry I am, Jack, and that I never meant to hurt you." I couldn't help myself. I actually started laughing. "How in hell could you tell me you were sorry, Sherry, and you never wanted to hurt me? What did you think I'd do when I found out? Congratulate the two of you?" "I never wanted you to find out. I love you, Jack. I've never loved anyone but you." "I don't think you really believe that, Sherry. How could you, after telling your lover how much better he made you feel than I ever could? How he was the only man who could complete you? How every time I made love to you all you could think about is him?" "Jack, I never said those things. How could you think I would ever say those things to him?" "Because I have the recordings of you saying those things to him, Sherry. Every word. Telling him that if you didn't have to let me sleep with you every once in a while to keep me happy, your body would be his property. Oh yes, Sherry, I have video of him doing such things with you and you loving it, and then telling him how you would never give me that privilege because it was exclusively his property. I have it all. Sherry, every word, every shame you tried to place on my head to him, every degrading thing you could ever say about any man you said to your lover about me, your husband. I don't have anything to say to you, Sherry, and there is nothing you can say to me that would make even the smallest difference in how I feel about you. I love you, Jack. You have to believe that I've always loved you, only you. I don't know what made me say those things to Greg. You have to believe that I didn't mean any of it. I was just trying to build up his ego because he always told me how his wife was always putting him down. So let me get this straight. You constantly tore me down to him, belittling me and my pathetic efforts at lovemaking so you could stroke his ego and build him up, because you felt sorry for him. Is that your story? You felt bad that his wife put him down, so you not only put me down, but you slept with him in every way possible for the last 6 months, just to make him feel better about himself. Yes, Jack, I never meant to hurt you. I didn't mean any of it. If you didn't mean any of it, then why did you do it, and why let him do it, Sherry, when you always denied that pleasure to me? I don't know, Jack. It just seemed dirty, and I felt like I should be dirty with Greg. That's all it was with Greg, fun and dirty intimacy. I had to keep it separate from what I had with you, which had to always be loving and clean. You really are one very sick puppy, Sherry. I'm amazed it took me so long to see it. Shame on me for being so blindly stupid. I don't love him, Jack. I love you. Please, Jack. If you can find it in your heart to give me a chance to make it right, I'll give you every part of me. I was so stupid. You have to believe that. I made a mistake, but that can't be the end of us. Let me show you. I can come to you right now and give you my body as many times as you want it. Please, Jack. Please, don't leave me. Sorry, Sherry. I don't love you and I don't have to leave you. You left me. The things you did with him and the degrading, humiliating things you said about me over and over and over, again for over 6 months, proved you don't love me. You can't love someone and wish him that kind of pain and harm and humiliation. I think you're disgusting, Sherry, an evil and disgusting cheater, and I cannot wait to have you out of my life. Do you really think I want anything to do with your body after you gave it to him and promised it only to him forever? I wouldn't touch your body if you were the last woman on earth. The only reason that I will ever have anything to do with you at all is the children. Remember them, Shelby and Brian, the kids we created when we were still a family? You let them down too. I want to spare them as much pain as possible, but I don't want to spare you anything. In fact, I want you to feel all of the pain you've heaped on me. You and your lover Greg both deserve it. and I want you to feel it. Why did you tell his wife, Jack? That was unfair. Unfair? Are you completely delusional, Sherry? What you did to me and our children is unfair. Why the hell do you think I told her? Number 1, he destroyed my family. Number 2, he took possession of the one body on this earth I thought was mine to have and hold, and he made her tell him how wonderful he was and what a miserable failure I was. And number 3, his wife needed to know what an absolute miserable failure of a human being she is married to. What she does with that information is up to her. They have children, Jack. So do I, Sherry, and my 2 are the ones I want to protect. I feel bad for his kids too, but it's not because of me that they may be facing the possibility of a future without their dad. It's his fault, and your fault too, Sherry. I refuse to take any of the blame here. I don't want a divorce, Jack. I'll fight for our marriage. There's nothing to fight for. I would honestly rather be dead than have to be shackled to you for the rest of my life.
I know you still love me, Jack. You have to. You can't just turn that off over one thing like this. My God, you are delusional. Completely out of your mind. Did you read the divorce petition you were served with?
No, why should I? If you'll just listen to reason and let me make it up to you, there won't be any divorce. If you can't do it for me, at least do it for Shelby and Ryan. They need a mother and a father, Jack. They will always have a mother and a father. We just won't be married or living together in the same house. If you had bothered to read the petition, you would see that as long as you agree to joint custody for our children, you can stay in the house and have half of all our worldly goods. What isn't in the petition? But what I'm telling you now is that if you don't sign the petition and agree to the more than favorable terms I'm offering you, I will share the videos of you and your dumb lover with every person you've ever known, including your parents and your sister and her children and any other person I can think of. You wouldn't do that, Jack. You can't hate me that much. Oh, there's where you're wrong, Sherry. I can and I will, and there is nothing on earth that will stop me. Fight me, and I will ruin your life forever. And yes, Sherry, I can hate you that much. Please, Jack, don't do this. Sign the divorce papers, Sherry. Please, Jack, let me make this up to you. No can do. Sign the papers, Sherry. Oh, God, please. Sign the papers, Sherry. And I hung up on her. Epilogue. Sherry signed the papers and the divorce was final in 6 months. She lives with Shelby and Ryan in the home we used to share, and I live in a condo a few blocks away. We are in the same school district, so there was little interruption in the kids' schedule, though. The pain of the divorce was felt by both of them. Shelby told me that their mother admitted she had made a bad mistake and our marriage couldn't get around it. But we both assured the kids that we would always be there for them. I have no idea what Sherry told her parents and sister about the breakup, but since they all still speak to me, I guess she didn't tell them I was to blame. As far as my mother is concerned, it was just something that neither Sherry nor I could get past. I did get a final chance to retrieve the audio recorder from Sherry's car, and the voice track was memorable. She'd called Greg on her way home, and again thanked him for a wonderful afternoon. But she told him she thought I might be getting suspicious and suggested they cool things for a couple of weeks, just till she knew the coast was clear. Then when she pulled up to the house, she got confused, wondering what all the people were doing standing in the street, looking at our yard. Then when she saw the signs and photographs and realized what I'd done, her screams almost broke the recorder. As she drove away, she was sobbing and saying, "What did you do, Jack? What did you do?" And then I believe reality hit her like a bucket of ice water and her story changed to, "Oh God, what did I do? No, God, please, what did I do? Please, God, make it all go away." She managed to call her lover, and when he answered, she screamed, "He knows, Greg, about us. Jack knows everything." And then, just sobs for a very long time. It's been over a year now since the fires of hell washed over all of us, and gradually I am starting to put the pieces back together again. I still do not date and likely won't for a while yet. The thought of a repeat of what I just went through has me still very leery of getting into another serious relationship. Shelby told me that her mom had gone out on a date one time, but came home crying, and as far as she knew, had not dated again. Sherry found a job as a receptionist in a retirement village and has given up real estate, at least for the moment. I've never learned if she stays in touch with Greg Allen, and I don't care. Greg Allen and his wife are divorced, and he has been unable to find a job. You see, even though I did not send the video of their sessions to anyone Sherry knew, I was not as kind to Greg. It seems that a lot of businesses are spooked by the possibility of hiring someone who has the reputation of seducing married women and breaking up their marriages. Of course, I fuzzed out Sherry's face in the videos, but I did leave all of the audio intact. I recently heard that Greg's former wife is dating a nice guy, a policeman, and it seems to be getting serious. Good for her. Oh, and speaking of Greg's former company, to avoid any bad publicity, they made a generous offer to me to keep from suing them. I accepted, and as far as I'm concerned, it's all behind me. For now, I'm just interested in my children and their future. Maybe one day my future will become important to me too.